Hi, my name is Dan Zeilinger, and I have been a world-traveling full-time trad jazz musician for the past 40 years. Some of my most memorable performances were on the lawn of the Edinburgh Castle, at Imperial Palace in Japan, as well as TV shows and commercials across the world. I've met many people during my career and have spent many hours on stage and off with these musicians, talking about jazz, life, and more. Some are touring musicians, some are theme park warriors, and some are casual musicians who play on the weekends with friends. I think they all have stories worthy of a movie script, and through these interviews, I'll be sharing them with you. Hi there, this is Dan Zeilinger with Trad Jazz Today. My next guest is somebody that I've known a very long time, and just that fact in itself surprises people. But if you have been to the movies in the last 20 years and seen Alias, Daredevil, The Matrix Revolutions, Paycheck, The Day After Tomorrow, Chronicles of Riddick, X-Men, The Last Stand, Mission Impossible 3, Ice Age, August Rush, Star Trek. If you've been to movie theaters in the last 20 years, you've heard the music of my next guest, Mr. John Van Houton. Hello, John.
How you doing?
Is that a pretty accurate statement there?
Yeah. I was also lucky enough to get to play on the Incredibles 1.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, I could have gone another 5 minutes with your screen credits.
I was very lucky.
Lucky has nothing to do with it, John. You're one of the most talented tuba players I know, along with just a handful of others I would put in your class. Tommy, just letting you know. Earlier this morning, I interviewed Eli Newberger, and he actually spoke about you a little bit, so in reputations, and he wants me to try to get Jim Self on, because I didn't realize Jim played jazz, but I guess he does.
Oh yeah, no, he loved. Jim's always been a big promoter of jazz and tuba, being involved in that.
Yeah, so I was surprised. So I'm going
to Doc Ellis,
Huh? Excuse me?
Jim played with Doc Ellis.
Yeah. So I'm going to try and make that happen. But this is about you. Yeah. And I was happy to know that you were born in Anaheim.
Yes, I'm a native.
And so there's not many of people that are. I'm not native. I was born in Omaha, Nebraska.
I didn't know that.
But that's really wonderful. And I know that you graduated from Loera.
Yeah, that's local. Sorry about that. I'm going to turn this off. And then, Norm Pearson, he's local.
Yeah. Now, were you at Loera when Gwen Stefani was there?
I was there. I think I'm 10 or 15 years older.
Okay. But there's been some names come out of that school.
I remember them rehearsing. Oh, yeah. I mean, they every day. When they evidently, the word was Saturday Night Live said they'd never heard a band that good, ever. They're definitely impressive, and she has some creds. So,
yeah, I guess she did the marching band too.
She
quoted in one of her interviews that the reason that she played flute and the reason she joined the band is because her boyfriend was a drummer. And she wanted to, she wanted him not to hang out without her, type of thing. And I know, which I really respect, by the way, that you still do clinics for that school, for that marching band.
Yeah. Matter of fact, we're having a big one in November 1st.
That's really wonderful that you keep giving to that community that way.
Yeah, it's a kind of a tradition there.
I would imagine. I knew Carolyn Parsons, who's of course a big mover and shaker in the band, and she was associated with the drum corps that my son is now the director of for a while. Really? So small world.
Yeah.
For us Orange County guys. And then of course, let's talk about what we were talking about right before we came on, because I find that fascinating. I forgot totally.
That's how we met. You called me.
For those of you who are listening, there was a day when I used to book a lot of stuff, And one of the things I booked was the first supposed bloodless bullfight in Orange County. It was at the Orange County Fairgrounds, and I called to put a band together to play in between the fights of the bulls and before the fights and after the fights. And I called John for that. Now I don't remember exactly how I got your number either, or how. Oh, I know you knew Daniels.
Danielson.
And he recommended you, so it's his fault. But thank you for remembering that gig. And you're right. I had to write that whole book.
Yeah, you had like very little time, and it was great music. And we were it. We were the entertainment. We weren't supposed to be, but the whole thing was a fraud. And we played all day Saturday because that's when the bullfights were supposed to be. And of course, the bulls, something was always going wrong.
Well, the first day they claimed
they make these big announcements.
The first day they claimed the track was too wet, and the matadors refused to fight.
And they even had priests out there blessing the ground.
Right.
Everybody fell into this fraud.
Absolutely.
TV
and then
stations, sheriffs.
Right. And the second day they claimed the bulls got out between Riverside and the stadium, and they were running around on the freeway in Riverside, and they couldn't corral them fast enough to do the fight.
And then they had to bring the riot squad in. But it was, it was great because, I mean, not for the riot and the violence. And there was no violence. No. None of us got hurt. But, I mean, it was, Dan and I had an instant friendship. And in this business, that's what it's all about, is relationships.
Oh, absolutely. That's one of the reasons I started this show, in fact, was to show up-and-coming players the friendships that are involved with our business. That's one of the things that Eli was talking about on the channel. He was talking about the brotherhood of tuba players. And although we may not have a chance to hang out at gigs, because none of us, we're usually one per gig, but there seems to be an instant bonding between bass players. Yeah. Of course, you knew me when I was playing trumpet, so that's.
Yeah, because that's you were trumpet. Actually, the whole time I knew you.
Yeah, I remember because once upon a time you loaned me a mouthpiece on tuba, and I used it for quite a few months. And then one day you showed up at my house and wanted it back, and that's fine. It wasn't an issue. But I remember you recommended me to the fanfare unit at Disney to play trumpet to Owen, and I hadn't been playing regularly for maybe a year or so. But I appreciate the creds. And he called me up. I said, well, I wouldn't hire me right now. He said, okay, well, John said I should call you for the fanfare unit. And if you don't think you can do it, that's okay too. And so thank you, John.
I was always impressed. I was always impressed with your plan.
Oh, you're kind. Well, and then we ended up on the Orange Peelers together.
Yeah, and I'm trying to remember John McCormick. He ran it, right?
Yeah, he was an ex-Buena Park cop.
That's what I thought. He was a police officer.
And he was the leader of that group.
Yeah.
And he and I met on a really terrible big band that used to play at Meadowlark Airport. And evidently he liked my playing too, because he asked me to do that band. And there were some people in that band that came through the band, especially you. And Kenny Sands, who was a union guy at the time, was playing piano.
Yes.
And a guy named John Valley played trombone. Kind of a little short guy.
Eric Jorgensen. Eric played a lot on him too.
Yeah, well, of course, John played Latin bands with me. Is how he ended up doing that.
Was it two bones or one?
Excuse me?
That was just one bone, right? Or was it two?
Well, it's just one. Yeah.
Okay.
And two cornets. So it was kind of a Lou Waters two cornet band, and I was playing first cornet at the time. But well, thank you, John. That really means an awful lot that you were a fan of my playing.
Oh,
I know it must drive you nuts at times when kids keep coming up to you saying, "My teacher is Mr. Zeilinger, and he says he knows you." Yeah. But
it's just I'm so fortunate. It was fun. We got to see. It was interesting the way I learned Dixieland. I didn't really know anything else existed but Wagner, Berlioz, Stravinsky. I studied Rite of Spring. That was my first score in ninth grade that I
Oh
did.
my.
Until I could get through it, I didn't move on.
Nothing like jumping in the deep end there, John.
Well, I figured if I could do that when I could, you know what I mean, I'd have a shot. But I was just, that piece just entranced me. So I was so far out of it. So and nobody knew. I didn't know what I was going to do. I mean, I thought I'd be in an orchestra. That's what I trained for. And so when I got out, you know, it was cruel. It was a cruel world. And I remember I got lucky and I got this Dixieland job. I never played Dixieland before. And I hate to memorize. I absolutely abhor it. You know, I just hate it. But thankfully on this gig was Tom Childs, you know, the bass player, he's an executive out of Disneyland, but he was a great bass player, but he played banjo. And I couldn't even memorize Saints. You know, I was trying to do that by ear. I couldn't even do it. And I'd like to come back to that too later on, if you can remember that. So he would just write down the chords, and then they loved me because I would just play Route 5. And when I get brave, I do a little walk up or walk down. You know, that was a big deal, you know. But most of the guys at that time were so virtuosic, and they would get bored. They would play such busy bass lines, they didn't know where the roots were, because these guys were playing everything but the roots, you know. And so I was a big hero for them.
Oh, yeah. The guys in the front line must have loved you.
But they were unbelievable. I mean, like Brian Atkinson, remember him?
Oh, God, yes.
And he was a great
Vibes,
yeah.
along with being a great trumpet player.
Yeah, incredible. I mean, I'll never forget it to this day. And it was astounding. But then I kept seeing this happen. Very few. I felt very. I heard this quote: in music, anywhere you go, there's always going to be others who are so much better than you.
It's true.
And I'll never forget, they were, you know, I had a book. Tom Childs would write it. Any tune they'd call it, he'd write it out. Not the tune, but the chords. That's all I would do. And then Brian didn't know this one tune, and he was an encyclopedia. You know, he knew every tune. And then he could play all the changes, you know, all that stuff. You know, he wasn't just doing like modes and stuff. He was doing so this guy whistles it once, you know, and I'm listening to this thing. I'm going, man, he nails it. It's the repertoire. I mean, I'm sitting there like, you know, I just felt like, I felt, you know, it was a very humbling gig.
Well, just to let you know, Dan Barrett did that for me. When I was starting at Orange Coast College, Dan would just sit there and write out changes for me on the gigs, and I couldn't find my butt with both hands.
Yeah, but you know, there's so many. One thing about this music community, is you really meet some fantastic people. You really do. And I mean, like here we're talking, we've talked a few times, you know, like every 3, 4, 5 years maybe.
Right.
I'll
see you at a trombone-orama or something, or.
Yeah, but this is, I'm sorry.
It's all right.
Oh, it's the alarms, so I don't miss it's the alarms.
Don't turn down a gig.
Yeah, no, yeah, gig. Yeah, I don't know about you, but I remember, I think it was March 12th or something, and every gig, so that's it.
Yeah,
just like, it just got erased.
Yeah, I've done a couple distanced performances for different jazz clubs where we'll get together in an empty hall and stand 6 feet apart and play some Dixieland tunes for our fans. But I miss people. I miss this. I miss talking to my friends.
Yeah, it's nice that there's a forum to do this. But yeah, I would say how many people are listening right now?
Oh, I don't know. I have no idea. I know that
age
we
group.
get more viewers on the second and third days, but I know I'm now getting people that are seeing this from Europe, and I'm getting people that are seeing this in Japan and across the country. So eventually, you get a really wide dispersion.
Right. Well, one thing, especially the younger players, well, I guess all of us, it never can be too good. But I remember, and I was doing this, it was Chris Bolte, I believe was the artist. And he did this like bebop solo. And we were, they were doing it, and he was in New York at the time. And so that was like, he did a scratch track. And the trumpet section was Jerry Hay and Gary Grant and Chuck Finley.
Those guys, yeah.
Yeah. Those guys, after we recorded, they all played it back in unison. Perfect. And I'm like, yeah. And it took me like 7 years to get, I think it was about 7 years later, I was talking to Bill Reichenbach about that. And he said, if you do it, it's like anything. You get really good when you do it all the time.
Yeah. When I talk to up-and-coming musicians, they don't wrap their head around the fact that you get in the studio, and if you get it wrong, it costs somebody money.
Yeah.
It has to be right the first time when the clock's ticking, and then union guys standing there. So
I mean, my point is, they did it by ear. They played back his solo by ear, and we were talking, and this is something that I would encourage everybody, and start real easy. It's just play 3 notes or 4 notes, like make a melody you like in every key, in every octave, and that don't use music.
Right.
Because I'm so reliant on music. I'm a slave to it.
Well, I like to have kids take something they know, like row, row, row your boat.
Yeah. No,
and do it in every key.
I think that's great. Or Rusty Higgins, woodwind player.
Sure.
Woodwind player, yeah. Great jazz musician.
Yeah, he teaches up at APU, actually.
Yes. He's got Rusty's a great guy. Long Beach Music, I believe. LA or Long Beach Woodwinds.
Right.
He has a store. But he makes everybody play the Star Spangled Banner in every key. I got a funny. There was this time, I won't say the orchestra, but in its time, it was a big deal. And it was like at the this is like the end of this group. Okay. This is after about like 50 years. This is now, because I played it at its height. And then I'd play with it every so often. And this conductor is putting on like a 3-hour concert. They don't know how to conduct. They don't know how to do anything, rehearse. And there's just this arrangement, Star Spangled Banner, and it's the typical one that you play in band or orchestra.
Sure.
Okay, so she doesn't run it because we don't have the time. We're playing up to the show. That's how unprepared she is. Overtime, all this stuff. And it turns out these 3 guys stand up and play. I'm thinking, what are they doing? Those idiots. And then all of a sudden they all duck out at the same time and start laughing. And it's silent, and all of a sudden the string players start picking up a tune. And I'm at the, on the night playing my part, I'm going, what are you guys doing? He goes, there was no part. It was a choir and orchestra. She didn't look at it. So the conductor So she's giving us a thing that starts off with choir, and then the orchestra joins on. It was unbelievable, unbelievable.
It's funny that you mentioned the Star Spangled Banner, because a lot of people, and even more educated musician friends, have a real hard time with doing a preparatory in 3.
If I had to play that in front of you guys, I'd make a complete donkey of myself. I would be so, yeah. And it's not hard, especially if you do it.
Well, we
If
do.
you don't
I mean,
do
as high
it's
school,
impossible.
as high school players, we do that. That B flat arrangement that every high school's done, and I understand it. But even from a classical side, I find a lot of less than spectacular conductors that have a hard time just doing a prep in 3.
Oh,
You know.
yeah. We had this one conductor. He could never finish that piece out. Da, 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 da. After that, it was a disaster. So it was just the group would just do it. It was hysterical. He couldn't. I must have done that at least 50 times with him. Never.
I have to admit, I was a little bit surprised to see in your credits the Simpsons movie. But the reason I was surprised is because David Silverman's a tuba player. David Silverman, the producer.
Yes.
And
he's a cartoonist.
Yeah, he actually subs for me at my Friday gig when we were doing it all the time.
He was sitting on next to me on the Star Trek.
Okay.
Then Michael wanted him to play on one of the things. So.
Yeah, I don't think he's. I mean,
No, he's
not.
He's the guy. I mean, there was like an emergency call because he said, "I gotta take this," and he had to come up with like a cell. They needed like what would seem like nothing to us, but in cartoon time.
Oh yeah.
It's about like 10 minutes. Be like a 10-minute cue, but it's probably like an eyelash.
Right. That involves maybe 50 or 60 drawings.
Yeah. So he had to make the initial and then give the directions because he has the staff to do that.
Yeah.
But he did that cell on that probably 10 minutes, and then whatever was required, it was done.
It's astounding. I've found through these interviews that a lot of my friends who I thought were jazz tuba players or even classical tuba players have this genius behind them as far as other gigs. A lot of Les Deutsch. I don't know if you know. I don't think you know Les probably, but he's a JPL engineer and scientist.
Yeah, I remember that name.
And he plays everything, and he plays very good tuba. But as we got in our interview, found out that his father was a scientist, and he's responsible for the communications to the Mars rover. It just blows my mind,
Well, did you ever play the canastel tubas?
Excuse me?
Did you ever have a chance to try out or play the canastel tubas?
Oh God, yes.
Okay. Well, they're great horns.
Yeah, I like the 5/4 King, the 5/4. What was it? Well, you saw me. I was at the NAMM show playing duets with Howard.
Yeah.
And I got a chance to play that York copy.
Yeah.
Phenomenal horns.
Oh yeah. The guy who came up with the alloy is a rocket science, literally a NASA rocket scientist, and he plays in the Orlando Symphony. He's a tuba player, Robert Carpenter.
Yeah. Okay.
And, Dick plays in the symphony, plays in Dixieland, loves Dixieland. He's a tuba guy, but his brains are in outer space. He has that mind.
Yeah, I understand. Yeah. I was shattered when Cancel went down. By the way.
Yeah.
I've known that family since I was in drum corps because I marched between Jack and Ziggy, the kids, when I was marching, and I couldn't believe it.
Well, I'll tell you, I think in the long run, I mean, Mr. Cancel, the owner.
Zig Senior.
Yeah, he was a genius. I mean, he whipped out literally in a day. Now I know this. Well, for you tuba players, F-tubas, the pitch is terrible. Well, and so most prototypes, it's really awful. And then it's all, they said it's all calculus. It's all physics because it's all science, evidently. And he nailed this thing at 85%. It was that good. I could not believe it.
I know that's what you play now for F tubas, right? You play a cancel.
No, I don't like piston valve.
Okay.
I really do like rotor. And it comes back, you know. And the problem, it felt, yeah.
Oh, I understand. I played a Miraphone as a Dixieland player for a long time and took a lot of heat for it. But I like the rotors too. I like the faster action.
Yeah. It's not faster. For me, I like resistance. And a lot of people, and to me, the cancel was the anti-resistance. You know, that makes sense.
Sure. Oh, yeah.
The way I was going to play it, I kept overblowing it.
Yeah.
And then when you try to back off, not so much that you can't play it soft, but to play it like that, it just didn't work for me.
I understand.
But,
no, I really disliked the earlier cancel tubas. They were so hard to hold, and you know what I mean. His earlier B flats before he went to the York model were just like trying to hug
I don't think I tried those, but
yeah.
Inertial's that way too.
Yeah.
Those things, you have to be like sideways. It's the weirdest. I mean, that's a whole different discussion right there. No, seriously.
Oh, I know.
Yeah, tuba players, when they get in their 60s, you know, they start limping and groaning and moaning because they've been letting these instruments play them. And I have a colleague that he developed, what do you call that when you get the scoliosis of the spine?
Oh, sure. Okay.
Tuba playing.
Yeah, you know, Westy had some problems. Westy had some problems with his shoulder.
Yeah.
Lichtenhofer.
Oh yeah.
And
I blew mine out. That's how I know if I'm playing right. If it doesn't hurt, I'm playing right. If it hurts, if that's when it feels good, I'm playing wrong.
Yeah, I can't stress enough to my younger students about posture.
Oh.
Sitting in the band room, they have to take it from us old guys that it's really important.
And you guys live longer. So you have to save the cartilage, save the meniscus in your joints as much as possible.
Yeah, I was really happy to see that somebody came up with some tuba stands, the shorter ones that sit in front of you. That saved a lot of people. Of course, back in the day.
Well, do you ever remember Randy England's story? How he saved me? Well, I used to sub at the Disneyland Band. And then back in those days, it was, I think it was a 21-piece group.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of great tuba players went through that band.
Oh, yeah, Lee Westenhofer is the greatest tuba player I've ever heard.
Les Benedict
But Lee Westenhofer, nobody. I call him the Jackie Gleason of tuba as the highest compliment, because the guy was not only the best tuba player I think I ever heard. Well, he was, but he was a comedian.
I know.
You'd be crying.
We actually ended up being.
Do stuff. I was supposed to be playing. I was bleeding. I was internally bleeding. I was laughing so hard. And
he and I actually ended up to be very good friends.
Oh, he was just. I mean, I won't tell one story. I'll tell you another time. Just between. And
he was a hell of a euphonium player too.
Anything. But he was a great singer. And we were doing, well, I'll give you an idea. Lee, he had a real deadpan look. Like if you walked in the room, life of the party, you wouldn't see him. You know? But he could do this thing with his hand. We call it the hand piccolo. And I swear this guy was nailing, I mean, he could play this piccolo solo.
He had like a 3-octave range on his hand.
Oh, it was unbelievable. And so he was doing like this. He had one of those megaphones, and it was like a 20s medley. You know, like when Ken Wickham, one of those great arrangements, you know, and it was a chance to show off Westy as a singer. And he got that, you know, he has that style of the 1920s, the real. And but every time he'd get there, he'd get the hand flute out. We're going, and it was nobody could. It destroyed the group. I mean, nobody could play. It was a rehearsal. It wasn't a performance.
Oh, he did it in performances too.
The only way that guy could, I mean, it was fine. I mean, it was, and the only way to get through it was the director finally say, if you do it again, you don't get to sing.
I've got to tell you a quick Westy story because I know you'd appreciate it. We were playing he joined the Mississippi Haven Jazz Band as a trombone player. And so he and I actually got to hang out and know each other pretty well. But we were on stage, I think out in Palm Springs. And he was doing the emceeing on the microphone. And Brian Shaw, who was our trumpet player, noticed there was a pitcher of water on stage. So while Westy was talking on the mic, Brian took the pitcher of water and filled his trombone up on the stand with water. And Westy's talking, and he turns around, he picks up his trombone, and he feels it. He feels the water. He just goes ahead and sprays the audience, puts it up to his mouth, and they didn't mind. It was hot in Palm Springs. But,
it was probably, they thought it was the funniest thing they ever saw.
Oh, it was hilarious. It was incredible. And just the fact that you saw that twinkle in his eye.
Yeah.
When he's about to give a punchline, and he picked up the horn and he looked back at me and smiled. I went, oh no. And it went.
Yeah. No, he was a genius. He truly was. I mean, to this day, he played a lick just walking in before we had lunch that I was speechless.
Well, he used to do a clarinet solo. Clarinet Marmalade was the Dixieland tune that he would play on sousaphone. You know?
Oh, yeah.
Incredible.
So, do you do questions or answers, or is this just an interview thing?
I just like to keep it conversational. And if there's something you particularly want to launch into, or you can let me continue to ask questions about things like.
You know, since.
But I send questionnaires out, and it's mostly just to give people an idea of the kind of things that I want to talk about. It's not because I want to stick to the questionnaire, necessarily. But a few people get really antsy when they interview them, they go, well, what are you going to ask me? And I sort of threw that questionnaire together just to kind of to appease these guys who got all nervous.
Mm-hmm.
But I really just want to talk to people and let them tell their stories as they want to. And it doesn't have to be jazz-centric. That was just used as a little bit of a hook to get people to talk and things to talk about. I actually would enjoy you talking a little bit more about techniques and the things that you see in younger players and things that you have to correct often about younger tuba players, those kind of things.
Okay. Well, one, as a positive note, I think what you're going to see, I think you're going to see a golden age of recording again. A big time. Yeah. So if you're out there and you want to go for this dream, and as a tuba player, one of the advantages is there's two ways to go about it. And again, business is going to change because you're going to get chances that Dan and I didn't get earlier, just because situations. And so if your next step is to go out there and you want to make a living as any part of music, any part of entertainment. You'd be surprised how many stuff is out there. Matter of fact, the last 10 years I've been telling my students if I had it to do over again, I would have been a tuba performance with a minor in film. Not that I'd make a film, but I want production because I want to know how to sell yourself and voila.
I understand.
So, I mean, you'd have it doesn't matter. I remember trying to read an engineer's manual for a console. I can't do 2 + 2, barely. You know, let's have a calculator to, you know,
Me
to
too.
verify it. Okay. And this guy is laughing at me. And he goes, look at, I was a music supervisor on this movie. And so I figured I'd better know more about what the engineers do. He said, don't waste your time doing that. Hire the best engineer you can and let him do his job. He says, by the time you won't understand it anyway, but even if you got through the book, it's already outdated.
Right.
Even if you could read and understand what was a paragraph from that thing, you know. So
that's so true.
And we all what is that movie? One of Dirty Harry's, the punchline. You know, there's always a catchphrase, "Make my day," and I think this one was, "You got to know your limitations." It might have been the second one when the mayor gets whatever. That a man's got to know his limitations, you know. And it's true. I mean, some of us are really great at certain things, and other people are amazing.
Absolutely.
No matter how much time you put into it, it's just so natural, or whatever it is, they'll always sparkle. And if you have the ability or the opportunity, you can hire that person or use that in your production. It makes the production value that much better.
Oh, absolutely. And I'm sure you've had the same thing happen where you have people come up to you who are fans and they go, I just can't imagine being as good as you are. And I say, really? I can't imagine being able to balance my checkbook.
Yeah.
You know, it's just another skill. These are all skills, you know.
I always thought, you know, like we're talking about, you make friendships. And I used to teach a music business class.
Okay.
Yeah, that's another subject in itself. But basically, my idea was, I was looking at these books, and what they were using was everything you want to know about the music business. Donald Passman, which is the Bible for any lawyer that's thinking probably maybe I go into entertainment law.
Right.
It would probably, for them, it's probably an idiot's guide to the music, and then they got to really learn how to be cretins and venomous snakes. That's not.
Oh, I agree.
It's a real art. I mean, when Elton John can still get ripped off, and he's got the best lawyers you can buy. The studio, they get better ones.
Sure.
They get the Harvard graduates, I guess, or whoever has the, you know, well, they get the guy that would. Well, anyway, let's not go there. And I thought, you know, if you're got to worry about this kind of stuff, this book, just take it back to the bookstore and sell it. If you've got to worry about those problems, you don't want to be listening. You want to be talking to a lawyer. You can pay them $900 to $1,800 an hour, but if you're looking at that kind of advice, I'll give you what it is to make a living in music. And I would teach it in five-year increments.
Right.
You know how it is. Unfortunately, you're a kid at 40. Again, that's going to change. I think.
Maybe to a certain extent.
We were lucky, and we weren't even. There was a lot of entry-level work for us.
Right.
That doesn't exist anymore.
Well, you know, as you well know, if I have a kid who comes to me and says they want to be a classical tuba player, there are a couple things I tell them. And first of all, I tell them to go get a teacher who's in that business. Go hire a teacher who's doing what you want to do, because there's no better way of into that business than connections through a teacher. Mm-hmm. There really isn't. If you want to be a jazz tuba player, go take classical lessons somewhere and then come talk to me, because one isn't possible without the other. But I do tell tuba players, if they learn how to play jazz, they'll always eat.
Yes. I remember you told me that. I remember a long time ago. My problem is, Dan, I just hate to memorize.
Oh, it's okay.
No, I mean, you know.
You've done very well.
And I'll never forget, because we had this book, you know, I was telling you, from Tom Childs wrote out these charts, and we must have had about 30 charts, you know. So we had to do a 4-hour gig. In fact, great, we got music, you know. I go, I got the book, you know. So I got hired, and we played. I mean, we thought it seemed like 2 hours had gone by, you know.
Yeah.
And so someone said, "What time is it?" It was like 20 minutes had gone by.
I know the feeling.
It's exhausting. I mean, I remember doing a circus. It was horrific. You're the only tuba player. They will not let you not play. You got to be playing all the time.
I did a circus on trumpet, actually.
With a abscess root canal and a bunch of other injuries, right? And I'm doing a security all night security job because I can't, you know, I got to make rent. So I'm not sleeping because I had to go to one of these butcher dentist things.
Yeah.
And they couldn't get the infection out. So I'd be up all night at that stupid security job, go to the dentist again, get shot up with Novocaine, and the circus started. And it was unbelievable. It was literally like playing a telephone book worth of music.
Yeah, see, the one thing I think will never change.
It'll never happen again.
One thing I don't believe will ever change is you really always have to pay your dues.
Oh, that was a great thing to do, man. I was hurt, and I learned how to play hurt. I mean, I was really hurt, and I remember having I had a big tuba solo, and I couldn't feel my mouth because I was still numb from Novocaine, and I was getting it.
Pardon me for laughing.
It was all by myself, and I swear, like 2 bars before the last tune ended, the feeling came back, and off I went. But you know how it is. You just do what you got to do.
Oh, sure. You're doing a musical or something, and all of a sudden you split your lip open. That doesn't mean you stop. You can't stop, you know?
Yes.
I understand, man. And then pardon me for laughing, but it's because I identify with it so strongly.
Oh, I remember once in a while you get lucky. And I remember one time I had this job out in Palm Desert. It was a good paying job. It was at the McCallum Theater. And it was one of these young girls. She was real big because she won American Idol or came in final. I guess if you even get in the finals, you're set for like 5 years.
Yeah.
And for some reason, I had to open the window. It was raining, so I had to close it. No, I had to close it. And I slipped and I bit right through my lip.
Oh.
And I'm thinking, oh, of course. You know, I'm thinking, now, it never fails. I mean, you're the worst. Now, the hardest stuff is going to be thrown at you. You're going to go in there, it's going to be a bloodbath. I had 6 notes the whole gig. I mean, it was unbelievable because then I could wipe up the blood, you know, and it was a mess. But Abrevia, remember that name, Abrevia. Went to a pharmacist that night. You can put it inside your mouth. 3 days, it was healed.
Wow. Yeah, I would always use like a tincture of benzoin or maybe some vitamin E to aid with the healing. I haven't heard about Abrevia.
Yeah, evidently, she said it's really expensive. It's like $26. It's a small too, but you don't need that much, and it works, and you know it's worth it.
Oh well, of course it's worth it if you've got to put money in your pocket and food on the table, and you've got a gig that you're supposed to be at. Yeah. Speaking of which, have you had days where you had a really hard day the day before? Have you come up with a recovery warm up or?
Yeah.
Talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, a couple of things. You have to kind of think of yourself as an athlete on earth. As brass players, wind players, percussion, I would think the same thing. Posture, everything like that. I mean, everybody has different approaches, but mine is you basically, you got to kind of almost keep you got to be healthy, because if you're not working yet, you're not making any money. Okay. So you really want to make, especially for you youngsters. If I say youngsters, that means anybody under the age of 50.
I understand totally. I think we are just about the same
You
age.
get old, you start teaching and you're 13, and then you're 19, and then you're 20, and then next thing you know, the mothers and fathers are younger, and I'm calling them kids. Yeah, that's a weird dynamic.
I understand. I remember, just aside, sorry, I want to get to what you're saying, but I remember the first time I was in the audience and my son was on stage. That was so weird.
Yeah. And they sounded great.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Yeah.
He was in his junior high big band.
Yeah.
And I had no idea. I had never experienced that feeling before, you know.
He went through everything you went through, and you could even appreciate it more.
Anyways, let's talk about your recovery routine.
Oh, okay. So I used to call it the Phil Tills. Phil Till, for anyone who doesn't know, one of the greatest bass drum players you ever want to hear. And
I was exposed to him when he was playing with Toshika Kiyoshi.
Yeah. He had, if you ever listen to the March from 1941, that's him. His technique was unbelievable on the bass trombone. And his low register was frightening. It was George Roberts was Mr. Bass Trombone, and then everybody after that, because of George Roberts. And George said, this can be done, and it was done. Everybody was doing it. And Phil was the first one to play bass trombone. And Toshika
Kiyoshi. Yeah, that's the first time I saw contrabass trombone.
It was piccolo and contrabass trombone solo, bebop, right? It was very virtuosic, as I remember. And he was playing on a very awkward instrument, and it sounded incredible. Phil was a great player. Well, one of the things that he did, I didn't mean to sidetrack, but he's incredible. Every movie, all the Planet of the Apes, the old ones, the first new one, the Danny Elfman one, we played on that together, and then I did the Giacchino ones. It was really, he was always a real gentleman. And but one of those things he had developed, and it was amazing. And it's kind of a funny story, but he would do everything in one embouchure. He was a shifter, you know.
Okay.
Does everybody know? If you don't know, a shifter on tuba, because of Tommy Johnson, my teacher, my mentor, if you ever want to hear the most probably significant note ever done, the change in an instrument overnight, the acceptance, is Zubin Mehta conducting the LA Philharmonic on Host Planets. And the first movement in Mars, bum, 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 bum.
Oh yeah.
He paced this note at the end so loud. It was a mistake. He shouldn't have been there. What happened was the orchestra manager, it was written for tenor tuba and bass tuba. And the contractor saw tuba.
Right.
Didn't you know, two tubas. Okay, I'll go Tommy. And so Lauren Marsteller was in our era. His father was the first trombone player of the LA Philharmonic, Robert, and he was an incredible euphonium player. So he's playing euphonium on it, and Tommy's thinking, and Roger says, stay. And they developed the most unbelievable, amazing. This is how you play low register. Roger said he played as loud as he could, and it didn't matter. He was wiped out. Tommy just lays in, and Jeff Reynolds was the bass trombone player. So Jeff could just go ape. And Tommy was as loud, if not louder, than Jeff down the aisle. And you heard him for the first time played those notes. So you check that out sometime. You know, he gets the credit for Jaws, and he did some amazing stuff. But that, as a tuba, if you're in the tuba or a student, you should know that album. And another one is composers. He's like a great composer. Edgar Varese.
Okay.
Anyone who's a friend of Frank Zappa or a fan, that was Zappa's hero. And it's called Arcana.
Okay.
Again, Zubin Mehta. And again, two tuba. Now it's two, an F tuba with Roger and a C tuba with Tommy. It was extraordinary. But that orchestra, they were amazing. Zubin came in and cleaned house.
Oh.
And for an orchestra to be able to play that piece, he had the best players on every instrument. I mean, I didn't know this, but before Zubin was hired, they had Schulte was going to be the music director.
Oh, I didn't know that.
A political ploy, and he brought in Byron Peebles with him from Chicago. That's how important the trombone was to Schulte. So he brings his principal trombone player. Most people bring their concertmaster. He brings his principal. And so, but they, I guess it was a ploy because Fleischman wanted Zubin Mehta. He saw this good-looking, charismatic person. And when Schulte said that, he quit. And Zubin Mehta, that's how he got.
Huh.
But it was orchestrated that way.
Yeah.
And it was the perfect match because all of a sudden it wasn't really a full-time orchestra at that point still until Zubin Mehta took it over. And they had record signings and it was a full-time. But he had the best players.
Talk to me a little bit about playing some basso. I've never played it.
Well, cimbasso.
Is there a big difference in how do you approach it?
Yeah, about 50%. I think it sounds about 50% better on a lot of stuff. I use that instrument paid for itself in about 6 months. It's the best instrument I ever had made. And it's like a tuba. It's a bass drum. It's like a contrabass trombone on steroids. Because very few people, Tommy said you ought to get one of these double C ones, mono Weston. There's Weston, mono Weston,
sure.
Weston, Rudy mono, but this was mono Weston. No, this was a Rudy mono.
Okay.
Awesome. Double C. I mean, this thing is, it can take a building down. I mean, it really can. And a lot of chase scenes, like in Mission Pop, those action scenes and things like that, in the Giacchino movies and stuff like that. Usually we go to that.
You can hear a lot of that. You can hear a lot of that sound for those of you who are normal citizens on the great Game of Thrones.
Yeah,
they use a lot of that. It's a very deep and dark but brassy sound.
Yeah. And then there's if you go on YouTube, the New York Philharmonic plays. I think it is the Game of Thrones. Have you ever heard that?
Yeah.
The low brass section. It's frightening.
I know, it gives you goosebumps.
Oh yeah. So I mean the instrument, and there's some chimbassos in there, so that's a good way to hear and look to see what a chimbasso is. But for your younger players that are looking to record, well, look at it. I think it's good. We're living in really exciting times. Technology, we got bumped up 10 years. So if again, and I got to do this too, Dan does too. We got to really know what we're doing. We got to become techno people.
Yeah. You had talked earlier to me about the fact that I was in on the digital revolution very early.
Oh yeah. I was telling Dan, I was thinking about it today, and we had done the bullfight. And I remember, again, I was hanging at your house, and you were showing me all the stuff on computer. Well, you got to remember, computers didn't exist.
No.
It was like that family. Well, you wouldn't even know this because you guys had never seen, and maybe people closer to our age. Remember, if you had a family in a block that had an encyclopedia set, the Britannic.
Oh yeah.
That would be like what a mega computer. I have an associate that his first computer was $20,000, and it didn't do a third of what a phone can do, he said. now.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
But that's where you started. And then they got cheaper and smaller.
And what I was going to mention was the fact that as good as sampling has gotten, and some of these, and of course, people like London orchestras put together sound drops for people who use electronic sampling to turn out products and things. It still doesn't give you the intermix of the harmonics that happens in a stage or in a sound studio. And much like that, the intermix between personalities and live performances, and that symbiotic relationship that happens not only in energy but even in harmonics, still nobody's duplicated.
I'll tell you, there's two really amazing. Funny you bring that up, because this goes on all the time. I remember it was on Dracula, the Coppola version.
Okay.
It was a fun score, and Phil Till had a low D, a low ledger line D, just one line, and then Tommy had a 3 ledger line low G, like a forte, not real loud, but I swear the pitch was so good that it sounded like there was a guy down an octave lower. They couldn't hear it, because I guess when you do this stuff, you don't know what's going on. But I mean, it was like, I'm sitting there going, my God. I mean, it was and they didn't believe me, but it sounded like there was some guy or gal sitting here playing that down the octave with them. I'd never heard that. And then I heard him, Wayne Bergeron. It was him and Dave Washburn, and it was the Incredibles too. Everybody says, "Oh, Wayne's a high note player." Wayne's a great trumpet player.
Oh yeah.
He had this low C triple piano with mute, and he came up with an idea to make it even soft. They could play it softer. He's playing a low C, and Dave Washburn's playing a G higher, and you could hear the E clear as a bell.
Right, that sympathetic E, that sympathetic third of the chord rings out.
Unbelievable.
I think I even know when the soundtrack where that occurred. Wayne's an old friend also.
It was so
phenomenal.
Yes. Yeah, he's Wayne's unbelievable. I remember the first time we met. It was like you do we did gigs,
Sure.
Everywhere, And I remember it was a launching of a Princess cruise line. I think it was the first big cruise line ship. Now they're surpassing the size of the Queen Mary, which was considered a city on water.
Oh yeah.
And these things make that look like a lifeboat. No pun intended. Especially for someone who might have relatives and stuff. This is not a good joke. Not even a good joke, period. Anyway, we had to play Christmas carols, and they had this for 10 hours. That's where Wayne and I first played, and Dan McKern.
Yeah.
Never met Dan. I hadn't met Dan and then Dave Wells. Remember Dave Wells?
Sure.
Yeah.
Oh God, yes, yeah.
And we played Christmas carols for 10 hours, and it was great. Like the first break, they had eggnog and cookies and something else sweet, right? And I was like, oh, this is great. And every break we had that. After 8 hours, after 4 hours, man, you're sick. There's nothing else but eggnog and.
Yeah, one time for the Orange County. I'm sorry, I was just gonna say one time for the Orange County Musicians Bash, I played in a samba band with Dave Wells, and he was playing trombone for that. Leo Potts was playing reeds, and a bunch of these guys. It's phenomenal, the people we meet in the business we're in.
Yeah, we're very fortunate. There's a lot of history. So I was fortunate, and I think. And Dan, yourself too. We didn't know this is what. I knew I was going to play tuba. I made that decision in 9th grade. I'm going to be a professional tuba. And then, of course, to about 25, everybody's saying you can't do it. And then,
my father wanted me to be a truck driver.
I have a standard phrase, which I won't say. Say it's a family show, but yeah.
Well,
don't ever listen to the word no.
Yes.
unless it's a police officer with a gun. But I mean, seriously, if you have a dream, don't don't go for it. You don't want to be 60, 65 years old and going, boy, I sure wish.
Yeah, when you get to be our age, and I mean that as a joint statement here, um, you wish you could have told your younger self to have confidence in what you're thinking, to follow your dream, to not let naysayers dissuade you from
Yeah,
what you want to do.
I remember I was again, the generation, and there's someone out there who's doing the same thing now. But when I was a kid, when you got out of college or if you came out to LA, you would study with, if you were a low brass player, you'd study with Roy Main. Roy was a great trombone player. I mean, amazing, could do anything. And he was probably one of the great, he was responsible for at least 4 generations of incredible low brass players. At least 4, if not 5. And
Yep.
The first time I met him, I drove all the way up like 100, almost 100 miles one way, take my lesson with him. He shakes, he goes, he puts out his hands, he goes, welcome to the world of paranoia. From here, you're a young player. Eventually, you're going to be an old player. and that's what, that it's the passion that keeps you going in this business. Because if you don't have to do it, you shouldn't do it. But if you have to do it, you have to do it. And you find
Absolutely. That's just one of my quotes to both my high school and my private students is, don't be a musician unless you have to.
Yeah, there's easier ways to beat yourself up.
Oh, God, yes.
Seriously.
But
Really,
for a few of us,
you go play on the freeway. It's
for a few of us, there was no choice.
Yeah. But I would do it again. I mean, you look back, it's it's interesting. There's no such thing as let's see what they call that. Something about artists will do it for love. What's that saying? Not starving artists, but something about love.
I don't know the quote.
They would do it for love or something like that, or they would give up their love, or they would give up their life. There's a famous saying. Basically, the quote is basically this: Fritz Kreisler was an incredible violinist of the 20th century, and recorded, and he was the guy. I mean, and records were like the medium. So no internet, you'd be listening to Fritz. You'd probably be hearing him on violin. That's how big he was.
Yeah.
Okay. And so he was a great player. And he had the famous quote of his is someone came up to him and said, Mr. Kreisler, I would give my life to play like you. He goes, I already did. And that's all these do. They practice 20 hours a day, every day.
Yeah. I remember having a conversation with my wife early on in our marriage, and I wasn't getting enough work, and I was sitting there staring at the ceiling, and I said, maybe I need to get a real job. Maybe I need to go out and drive a truck or do something, because I don't know. And she'd say, bless my wife, by the way. She'd say, if you're not doing this, if you're not making your living in music, you're going to be miserable. And if you're miserable, I don't want to live with you.
Yeah.
And
it would be horrible.
Just bless her. I mean, for a non-musician.
That's why she loved you. She loved you for your passion.
For a non-musician to understand that. On the other hand, she also told me once that she doesn't know who I am when I'm on stage.
Yeah.
She says, I look at your eyes when you're playing and I have no idea who that person is. So.
Yeah, I've heard the same thing. Yeah, I'd say that one of the biggest hangups I had, because you get so myopic in your thinking. You're practicing 4 to 8 hours a day, obsessed with your instrument. I mean, we didn't have, God, if we would have had the YouTube, imagine I couldn't believe, I just found out about YouTube 2 years ago.
Oh, I know.
Well, it's unbelievable. I mean,
But also, I want to give a warning to the kids, though. You know, a lot of the generation that's now, say, high school age, a lot of the kids think they can learn everything on YouTube. And there certainly is a lot of information. And when we were kids, I mean, we had to go through some pretty strange things to hear music. I mean, we'd have to go into the record store and go through the lacquer and get recommendations from people. But there's no substitute for having a good teacher. There is no substitute. You can't learn what you need to learn online. And I'm not talking about how to play the notes or how to finger the notes. You have to understand the soul of what it is we're doing.
Yeah. 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 The older I get as a teacher, I'm amazed how much metaphors work on people. No, really. I had this young lady. She was not a music major, and she went to the university, and she went. Where she went, they had no music program. And I mean, for probably 2 years, I was trying to get her to play a forte. I was using, I'd say, just like you're gonna take a fist and not, just knock somebody's, just.
Sure.
I'm 2 years I'm doing this thing. And I finally go, you know what? I'm looking at her, right? And I'm thinking, she has no idea what I'm talking about. She's never felt a forearm at the throat. I mean, why would she know that? Why would she think it would be fun to knock the snot out of someone's nose when they hit the ground, their head goes like that? But when you play contact sports, that's fun. Especially if it's your friend. You're always trying to kill your friend. Okay? I mean, you ever remember Marcus Allen, the great running back at USC and then played for Oakland?
No.
Oh, this guy was unbelievable. It was just above, like Jordan. It was just too easy, and very competitive. And boy, he, it would just be like, I was using these harsh metaphors. And the reason I bring up Marcus Allen, I remember Ronnie Lott went to UCLA and Marcus Allen went to USC, and they were big stars. They both Hall of Famers and Super Bowl.
Okay.
Okay, long story short, evidently Ronnie, it's one of these books, and Ronnie Lott tell-all book. And he said, Marcus is out there, he's my best friend, so I'm going to kill him, man. I know his moves, and I'm aiming for him. And Lott was an assassin, that's what they used to call him. In the old days, anything went on the football field. I mean, anything. You could literally try to kill a quarterback, and you got praise. Now you get fined and outlawed, you're gone. But it was a different time, different way.
Oh, I understand.
But anyway, so Lott says he's just about to get him, and Marcus Allen does one of his patent moves, about an inch, and it makes you look like a fool. You grab air, and he's off gone. And he said, "Oh yeah, I remember that." And then they told him what that quote, how Ryan Lott wanted to take his head off. He goes, "Oh, I knew that." So I was watching him. And I waited, and then I did my little juke move. But I go, "Oh yeah, of course." I was doing this. I was going to beat him. I was going to make him look as bad as possible. So yeah, it's that mentality. I'm trying. In music, you almost have to have that. But what I found as a teacher, and as you probably have too, like you can talk about certain TV shows, but who cares if you haven't seen them?
There you go.
When you try to relate to, I'm supposed to berate a bunch of people who were born after 2000 because they don't like the thing.
Well, one of my teaching mentors just happened to be a Dixieland guy too, a gentleman named Bill Dendel out of Sacramento, and he has his master's in curriculum design. But he also plays banjo and trombone. And he told me something that I've carried all this time, and that is start with what your student already knows. And that's exactly what you're saying, something they can relate to.
Yeah. So you know what her things were for the old shot was a It was a pat and a push. It was even less.
Sure.
And she sounded great at her jury. I mean, everybody's going. I'm going. Yeah, I did. I mean, it just she killed. She could never. And then I'll never forget that. That was amazing. Yeah, you're always learning. I was probably 59 years old when I learned that trick.
I probably learned my most of my best teaching lessons by listening to students.
Yeah, that's what exactly. You learn more. I always say to my students, as soon as you feel ready, teach, because you're going to be a better player.
Yep. Hey, John, this has been a blast.
Oh, well.
I wouldn't even start ending this conversation if I didn't have more coming on today.
Oh, no. I understand.
But gosh, it's been fun, and you're welcome to call me anytime and just talk. It's been so much fun to reconnect with you.
Oh, same here.
And I'm glad that you consider me as much of a friend as I consider you.
Oh yeah, it's great. I'm glad your son's doing it. Aaron's doing great, huh?
Oh yeah, he went to APU because of you.
Yeah.
Which is kind of funny, because the guy who I actually wanted to go there ended up going to Chapman, but a student of mine. But thanks again, John. I hope we get to talk again soon.
Okay, yeah, we'll do it.
And better than that, I hope I get to hear you play again soon.
Yeah, well, that's a great thing about Netflix and Amazon.
Are you still getting any studio calls at all?
I I think it was March 12th or something, or 13th. That was the day they made it. It's just.
Well, it'll blow over soon, and we'll all be good.
Yeah. No, like I said, just if you're out there, that's what you want to do. Be ready. Be ready to hit the ground. They need product. They need a lot of product, and hit that ground running. And if you have to get a home studio, because it's a great way. They email you a part, record it, email it back, get paid good money.
I do have one favor to ask of you before I go here. Take care of yourself.
And you too, my friend.
It's important to me that we have you in this world and being well and entertaining and giving us your sound. All right. Thank you, sir. Take care.
Okay, you take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you all for watching Trad Jazz Today with Dan Zeilinger. Make sure you subscribe and turn on the notification bell. Videos come out every Wednesday and Friday.